Today, we're going to be talking about youth development and the arts in the Caribbean. We're meeting with Mariel Barrow, Program Manager of This Is Me, which is a project funded by the IDB in Trinidad and Tobago, but they're looking to expand across the Caribbean. Let's learn about what's happening with the arts. Welcome to Carib Nation. My name is Abby Charles, and I am excited today to be hosting Mariel Barrow, Program Manager of the This Is Me project, a project funded by the IDB in the Caribbean. The project was started in Trinidad and Tobago. So Mariel, I don't know if you could tell me a little bit about why the IDB. Welcome to the show for sure. But tell us a little bit about why this project, why the IDB, why young people.
Well, thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here, back in the US as well. So I've been working with the IDB for a few years, and it actually started up here in the US while I was a student at George Mason University. And I was working with ICS, the Institute of Caribbean Studies, and just kind of through partnering with different young people who were working with the IDB, they picked up on what I was doing and offered me essentially an accolade and invited me to be one of 10 young innovators to present at their general meeting in Bahia, Brazil.
Okay.
So that went on to the head of the Multilateral Investment Fund recommending me to her staff to do a project in my home country, in Trinidad and Tobago, along the lines of what I've been doing up here and across the region, but also in line with what happens in Latin America in terms of the arts. They recognize, the IDB having done lots of projects of this nature in Latin America, recognize that the arts are a very fertile ground for young people to not just develop socially, but have some prospects for economic development. Mm-hmm. So it's not simply the arts, it's the arts as a vehicle to a kind of more solid base for young people and for personal growth. So the IDB, the Multilateral Investment Fund, picked it up and they offered me what's called a mini myth. As my organization was a fledgling organization and what our team lead called a new civil society animal, we couldn't get the larger project, which was like millions of US dollars, which I was pretty okay with. Mm-hmm. So we got a 2-year project to the tune of 150,000 US, and we had to match that funding in cash and in kind to develop a proposal for a pilot for young people, persons at risk, and we chose fashion. We chose fashion for a number of reasons. Firstly, it was one of my kind of pet things that I dabbled in as a young person, even though my focus is visual arts. But also because it's one of those things that it taps into memory, it taps into identity. It's both public and private. It's a psychological kind of evaluation of self. Every morning you choose, what am I going to wear? Mm-hmm. What does that say about me? Mm-hmm. Does it say anything about my past? Am I wearing my mom's earrings or my grandmother's, bracelets that reflect my Indian heritage or my African penchant? So there's so many aspects that come to the fore with fashion. And then of course, it's within the creative industries, and there's so much room for growth economically. Mm-hmm. You can do it at the foundational level in your bedroom, making clothes for your family or for the community. But you can also do it in terms of manufacturing, or you can take it to the runway, right, which is a high art. Mm-hmm. So it's from kind of very functional space to high art, and that's what I like. That's what I loved about it. Mm-hmm. In terms of an area of choice. So we ran this program for 2 years. Okay. It actually ends today. Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. Officially, and we've had about 50 students ranging from ages 16 to, well, the project officially takes 16 to 32. But there were so many people interested in it that we ended up with 50 and 65-year-olds, persons coming in to work with us because there was so much being offered. So we do 4 modules. We do life skills and leadership. We do fashion, of course, entrepreneurship, and then we have this aspect that we call the sustainable income project, which was kind of an add-on based on our understanding of what our students need. So, you know, our model is to really use the best of the best in terms of lecturers for our students. So they have names like Lisa Wickham, who is a she's a top-notch film producer, right? In Trinidad and in the region, and operates internationally. We have Georgina Terry, who teaches them entrepreneurship, and she coaches CEOs in our country. We have Sandra Carr, who's the head of the Fashion Design Academy at the University of Trinidad and Tobago, who we partner with. And so all their fashion teachers are university lecturers. And so they have the opportunity to matriculate into UTT's fashion design program, Bachelors of Fashion Design, which is an amazing opportunity because they usually don't have the passes otherwise. It's been an exciting road in that regard. But apart from that, in the end, we also offer them the opportunity to access microfinancing, microloans, to start their own businesses and to get it up and running.
Why is that important in the Caribbean, for young people to have access to loans, for young people to have access to entrepreneurship training? Why does that matter?
It really does matter because oftentimes young people don't have access to a lot of job opportunities. But not simply job opportunities, but a kind of holistic development path that can really retrain their minds in how to think about themselves differently and to put themselves on another platform. And the loans are really a critical part of it because obviously, coming from that background, where are you going to get that financing? Who's going to look at you and say, yeah, I'm going to deposit X amount of money into you because I have faith in what you can do. So that access to microloans is really, really critical. It's something they often can't do on their own, even based on what their address is. And that's a major thing. If you come from Laventille or some other kind of underprivileged, disadvantaged area, persons don't want to invest in you. Banks do not want to invest in you. So you have to get these alternative routes. So that really is a big deal for them, but there's still a lot more to that because they need to, someone needs to hold your hand. Entrepreneurship is not an easy thing. So there's a lot of kind of hand-holding that goes on in terms of mentorship by their teachers, but also, helping them to produce materials while they're in the program, start taking them to market and testing them on the market. Because if you just, decide, okay, I'm gonna make this dress, and you deposit all this money in it and you haven't tested the market, that could be a big flop, obviously. So there's a lot that goes into the whole process.
Okay. Now, you mentioned Laventille in Trinidad, and certain communities in Trinidad that maybe have some negative stereotypes associated with them. Have you seen this in other Caribbean islands where there's a need for programs for young people who are from what they state are at-risk communities?
Absolutely, and we have been looking at doing the program in Jamaica, and we got a lot of support from various agencies across the board to do it, and we were looking at Montego Bay because the rise in crime and youth crime there has been pretty phenomenal. So there's really a lot of space for it. What you find happening as well is that a lot of money is often poured into certain centers and capitals so that other areas are left behind, and then the crime rate starts to go up there. So we wanted to opt for Montego Bay rather than Kingston because we felt, a lot of international agencies and local agencies will be focusing their efforts in Kingston. But we also have to grow as an organization in terms of capacity in order to spread ourselves across the region in that way. In a lot of ways, I feel as though Jamaica would be an even better space to have it, because of course the arts in Jamaica are so deeply rooted as, it started as a nation building, format in a sense. And you have such kind of amazing names there, Rex Nettleford and so on, who carried the arts forward in a way that's really unprecedented in the rest of the region. Of course, Trinidad does have a lot happening in the arts as well, but it has not become, the vehicle in the same way that it is in Jamaica. So we're looking at Jamaica, we're looking at Bahamas and Haiti again. And we've done programs before in Haiti and Jamaica. So we have some little bit of history there to start with.
Awesome. Tell me some of the successes of this program. What were some of the outcomes? What did you see? What did you produce?
Well, one of our students did graduate and get into UTT's Bachelor's of Fine Arts. These things are not straightforward. So while she did and she was doing well, she was not able to continue because she had 2 kids to support who were in high school and were in good high schools, and she had some major health issues, both she and her kids, and was living on welfare. How do you do that? So there's a lot more work that's needed. It's been successful in terms of what can happen and where they can go, but we need a lot more infrastructural support to make it all happen. We also have about 5 students in this cohort who are going to access their loans and start their young businesses. Awesome. And they've started producing all kinds of little products that are, they have taken to market. So yes, our students have been successful in that some of them have gained clientele and can now make shirts and sports jackets and, their African wear and so on, and have sometimes so much of a clientele that they're missing classes. Go figure. So, it's been good. It's been challenging, but it's also been good.
And you said the program ends today, but tell me about sustainability, because I find one of the challenges in not just the Caribbean, across the globe, is that when people start programs, just seeing it continue is sometimes a challenge. Tell me a little bit about how this can be sustained.
That is definitely one of my pet peeves. I call it the staccato rhythm of our nations in the Caribbean. So what we've looked at, we really tried to build that into the program, and that's where the Sustainable Income Project came in, where we produce items for sale and carry them to market. DHL partnered with us and offered us 50% off to export the merchandise so that we can get larger markets to help support our students. So that's one aspect of things, but even to carry that on takes a whole lot of doing. But in addition to that, the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Culture have been really, really supportive, and they want to continue working with us. And the Ministry of Education wants to translate the program into the technical vocational training within schools. It's, again, going to take a lot of doing to make this happen. So we now have to kind of design the project for a larger scale with this in mind, test it within the schools, and see how the model works. But it also involves getting a building, which would be a hub for the activities, making sure all the curriculum is sound, making sure we have options for online delivery of some of the modules, so that if students can't make it for some reason, there are other options.
As you lived in the U.S. and then you moved back to Trinidad to start this project,
yes.
What opportunities are there for people in the diaspora, in whatever country we are living in, but we're from the Caribbean, to work in the Caribbean and to give back? What opportunities are there? What are some of the challenges, and how did you overcome those? Or what suggestions do you have for people who are going home?
Transitioning back home is definitely a process, and people say that it takes about 2 years to really kind of find your foothold. Of course, in my domain, in terms of my profession, it's probably even a little bit more challenging, right? Because it's always the last thing on the books, the first thing to lose funding, and so that's been the challenge. I think that people don't really recognize my commitment to my cause, and we're very, very supportive. So a lot of agencies did come on board and help drive the project forward with me. So the Citizen Security Program, NEDCO, Youth Business Trinidad and Tobago, those are some of our partners, as well as, of course, your own company in fashion. So we've had a lot of support in that area, and I think collaboration is really, really key in this. So I would say that if you're really interested in kind of giving back to your home, which I think everybody should be, the first thing is to find some really strong collaborators, some really strong partners, and try to buy in and develop something that's already happening. I think as Caribbeans, we always want to start something new, which is great, but we have to recognize that there are other things happening on the ground that can go further if we choose to support something that's happening and build it out, and kind of just marry those resources, because resources are limited. In terms of working with the IDB, they invited me to become part of what they call the Next Gen board for their Unfollow campaign in celebration of their 50th anniversary of, being in Trinidad and Tobago. And so that board is really phenomenal. It's made up of bankers, persons in the creative industries, professional singers, just this whole people in tech, this whole cross section of industries coming together to think about how do we partner, how do we engineer and create an architecture for our nations to move forward. Mm-hmm. And so just being in that environment has been so stimulating and encouraging and exciting in terms of, just having kind of the platform to really design what our future can look like.
Now, young people in the Caribbean, as you talked about, Jamaica, we've seen some crime occurring in some parts of the country and somewhat youth involved. Yeah. Young people have been involved in those incidents of violence. What are our governments doing to address young people? I mean, and I understand that private citizens have to get involved and we have to take action as well, but how are our governments creating the environment for us to make those changes and to do that work?
Well, I mean, there are always a lot of government programs that are operating, and that's great. And they have kind of different measures of success, different levels of success. But I think that the onus is really not on the government alone, and I think that's one of our challenges in the Caribbean. Mm-hmm. We tend to look to the government to solve all our problems, and as much as we have some good leaders, there's just also the political game that's always happening. Mm-hmm. So I feel as though, especially with change of governments, then you lose some programs, and then some programs start over, and then they have to reevaluate something that's happening already and what went wrong. And that is a lot of times what kind of holds us up. Right. So I feel that the solution is not the government in that sense. I think the government is, playing the role that it should be playing to a certain extent. There's always room for growth, of course. I think that what is really required is some really strong public-private partnerships as engines of change. And each and every young professional making it their personal responsibility to volunteer, to give back, to involve themselves in the development of the nation. Right. Yeah. Right.
Where do we learn about those opportunities to give back to our countries? Or how did you learn? How do others learn?
You have to be really invested. There'll be LinkedIn groups. You search Facebook for the hashtags and for the kinds of things, the kinds of areas that you can give back in, whatever your professional area is. Mm-hmm. And you will definitely tap into some kind of network. I can't say, well, go to this particular place. It's really different for each profession. Mm-hmm. But part of that is creating the hub. I think that if we use for example, up here, if we use our embassies to create cultural hubs for that information to be disseminated, that would be a great step in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. So tell me about your products. A little bit about the products that This Is Me has created. Uh-huh.
Well, I would say that our signature product is our hand-painted silk scarf. Mm-hmm. It's hand-painted by one of our students who's an artist in his own right. He's a painter. And so he's just translated this into a different medium in a sense. And they're really, really beautiful. They're pretty high-end because, of course, silk is not a cheap fabric. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of our signature lines. Then we have what we call our infinity line, which are these kind of very Caribbean dresses and batik and tie-dye and, backs out, flowing kind of pieces. One of our students makes these little hand purses, which I call the chengle, right? They're really nice to walk around with, holds your keys, your lipstick, just your little things. And then we partner with various designers, as you know. So this is the Leah belt done by Lisa Gittins, who is she has her own company, So Lisa, her own brand. And she was generous enough to essentially donate to a certain extent, the intellectual property of this piece to allow our program to grow. So we make these belts, our students make these belts and sell them to help them support themselves and through the program though. And so we sell them and they get money back to get to class, really, because they already have scholarships, but they still can't get to class. And this is how partnerships can work. So with you, we make the necklaces for your company, and this gives the students, again, money to get to class and to do whatever they have to do. And it's these kinds of partnerships and these kinds of small ways that don't take anything from, really, they contribute to some other business, really, in various ways, but it can really help a young person.
What were 3 of your biggest lessons learned from doing this project in Trinidad?
Young people have a lot of, in our nation, have a lot of issues with trust. And that's our fault. They can't trust their surroundings to look out for their best interests. They can't trust their communities to protect them. They can't trust their leaders to be honest with them. They can't trust their fathers or guardians to not take advantage of them. And Frantz Fanon refers to the educated elite. That's on us. If we haven't made it our responsibility to give back to our nations in such a way that our young people don't feel safe, what have we done? Really, what have we done? We have done an injustice to ourselves because in turn we then don't feel safe. So this issue of social responsibility, it's a very intimate, personal issue that each person really needs to kind of just reflect on where they are and what they're doing with their lives and how they are contributing to the malaise of their society.
So this is part of your broader work with Caribbean InTransit.
Yes.
Tell me about Caribbean InTransit and a little bit about that vehicle and what you're doing now. What are your next steps?
So Caribbean InTransit was born when I came up to study here in the US, and it was just kind of happenstance. A really close girlfriend, invited me to do a conference presentation with her, and then it just turned into this whole big project and this whole big company. So Caribbean InTransit does arts festivals, and we've done 3 of those, 1 here in DC in partnership with the IDB and 2 in Trinidad. We partner with universities, National Trust, the Smithsonian, just a range of partners, and that's really exciting. We do an academic journal focused on the Caribbean arts, which is peer-reviewed, open access, and multilingual. And this was really aimed at expanding the access of Caribbeans to the information that is about them. Because if you're not in a university, you can't access, real research that is about the Caribbean arts. And we also, we do the This Is Me program, and that program in Trinidad was actually the 5th edition. We did 1 in Haiti, Jamaica, and 2 in Trinidad prior to that. And we do what we call the In Situ branch, which is kind of research, collaboration, anything you want it to be. And we've done 1 project at the Haiti Ghetto Biennial in Haiti, obviously, and 1 in Zanzibar, Tanzania, working with Muslim women and men. So that was pretty amazing.
Awesome. And what's next for you? What is your next step after This Is Me, or during This Is Me's transition? What's going to be your next project?
Well, so I have a book that has just been published.
Awesome.
I haven't actually received a copy yet. It's still in the Bahamas.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's called Sacred Space, A Sense of Place, and it's on the work of Antonius Roberts, who's an artist and conservationist and, really a social activist. So he and I have, co-authored the book, and he has done this site called the Sacred Space on this old plantation, slave plantation, and then there are these 12 statues that are kind of Haitianesque in a way, with blackened faces and their heads wrapped, and the trees that they're carved out of are still rooted in the ground. And it's really this really moving space, and anytime someone goes to it, they don't leave unchanged. And so people have written from all over the world after they've returned home from their trip to say, wow, this was the best part of their trip. So the book is on this space, and it's a combination of poetry, prose, photography, and then there's this kind of activity section which teaches young people how to do community arts projects and how to turn that into a business.
So, ready for This Is Me's next steps?
Yes, the Orange Academy.
Okay.
Ready for that?
The Orange Academy?
Yeah.
That's the name of the program.
That's the name of the, yes, so no, so the Orange Academy will then house This Is Me as a program. So This Is Me will become a program within the Orange Academy, because we have to think about the sustainability. If we only work with at-risk youth and we find no way to bring people into our countries, for example, that's not sustainable. It will always be the government trying to fund, or people trying to fund this program. So the Orange Academy is meant to be this larger structure which allows for exchange programs between universities and so on to come to our nation, to work with our people, to work with our students, and study the Caribbean arts.
Why Orange?
Orange, so the IDB, of course, I've worked closely with, and they've been phenomenal partners, has what they call the Orange economy, and it's essentially their term for the creative industries. And so we decided to name it the Orange Academy, you know, kind of in partnership with them, because we've partnered so closely with them. And also to, you know, to think about not simply what the color means, but what the creative industries can bring to our nations.
Okay, wow, awesome. You are amazing, right?
Thank you.
Amount of work that you're doing right now, and the way that you've invested your time in our young people in Trinidad and the broader Caribbean is really phenomenal. And it's something I think that we should all aspire to try to do. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really been a pleasure.
It's been wonderful learning about the work, and I hope it continues.
Thank you.
Awesome. So today we learned about the This Is Me project, a youth development program that integrated fashion and the arts, working with at-risk youth. The work that Mariel Barrow is doing is truly phenomenal. And one message that really resonated was that we have to be invested in transforming the lives of our young people in the Caribbean. Any trauma, any violence is as a result of what we have not done in the Caribbean. We have to do more. Regardless of where you are in the world, we should be giving back and thinking about how to do that strategically. This Is Me teaches us that it's possible, and that it's possible to be sustainable. Thank you so much for paying attention, for sticking with us, and for following us. This is Abby Charles again for Carib Nation. We are one Caribbean, one people, one culture, one nation. Carib Nation.